Well, despite a national championship owning by their rival, you would have to say that the off-season college football universe is centered around Ann Arbor, Michigan, with Jim Harbaugh's hiring and some of the things that he's done and said since then. We bring in Joshua Henschke of Maize and Brew to talk up Michigan football about halfway through spring practice. Josh, thanks so much for joining us. I'd like to dive right into the quarterback competition. It's been a mess for a few years. Devin Gardner, he's gone. Say what you will about his career. I think we can state both the good and the bad. We've got 3 candidates on campus. Kind of review what we've got at this point.
Yeah, I mean, first off, you've got Shane Morris. He's seen a little bit of playing time. Hasn't really done much with it, so to speak. I mean, he's been put in some pretty bad positions, whether it be garbage time, or that game against Minnesota where he was kind of just thrown out there mid-season just to see how he performed. I mean, granted, you want to see your quarterbacks perform if put into those kind of situations, but mixed with that whole concussion mess last year, he hasn't quite really performed up to what fans really expected from him. Who was a low 5-star, high 4-star guy, and he didn't quite exactly kind of pan out. So you've got him that I don't think he's quite guaranteed a starting spot this year. You've got 2 guys, Wilton Speight and Alex Malzone. Alex Malzone is a true freshman, early enrollee guy who's, by all accounts, really impressing passing game coordinator Jed Fisch. And Jim Harbaugh is not really talking about the quarterback position, but I mean, if he's impressing Fisch, I'm assuming he's making some sort of impact on Harbaugh as well. Wilton Speight too is another underrated guy that could come in and steal the quarterback position. Didn't see time at all last year due to a red shirt. Was really underrated coming out of high school. He suffered a broken collarbone, I believe, his junior year, which sidelined him for the entire year. So basically, you had. I mean, his injuries kind of derailed almost his entire high school career. So basically, you've got kind of like a part of a sophomore year through entire healthy senior year of film of that guy. So there's not much there to judge from. So at this point, I mean, it's really tough to kind of determine who's going to be the starting quarterback at this point. It's really wide open. I don't think the spring game's really going to show much. By the way that Harbaugh and everyone's talking that it's even reps, 2 teams on both sides of the practice field going at it. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with it in the spring game. But I believe, I mean, Harbaugh is weird with his spring games. There's a lot of different ways he could go with this. I mean, he could go with his drafts like he did at Stanford, where you've got 2 teams facing one another, so you could have players spilling up time there. But at the end of the day, I really don't think we're going to find out anything substantial with the quarterbacks until fall camp.
Based on the review I read that you wrote, that Jed Fisch was commenting on the quarterbacks, I think he wanted to be very complimentary, not be critical of the progress at this point. It sounded like he realized that Speight didn't have a whole lot of reps in practice last year. He realized that Morris seems to spin the football better than anybody. He seems to have the talent, and it's pretty obvious to Fisch, and now he wants him to control the offense and take some leadership and start to be able to do some of the things that you would expect out of that highly recruited of a player that has that kind of talent to be able to make the right decisions and throw the ball where it needs to be. And then Malzone, obviously, it's impressive that in this situation, although it's become commonplace that an early enrollee is in camp when he could be a high school senior still, and so he expects some large growing pains there, although the kid has a ton of talent. Tyrone Wheatley, of course, had his heyday at Michigan. One of the greatest players in the history of the program. Now he is charged with trying to determine who the best running back is in the squad, based on recruiting rankings, based on production to this point. Although it's not been enormous, you would have to think it would be Derek Green. So, your thoughts about the running back position? I know that Ty Wheatley would like to focus on one guy and see if there's one guy that can carry the workload.
Yeah, I mean the way Wheatley puts it is that these guys need to figure out who they are first before the coaching staff can figure out who they are, which in a sense is true. But I mean I think you've seen enough of Derek Green and Devion Smith to know what they're going to bring. I guess Drake Johnson as well, who suffered a torn ACL against Ohio State when he scored that touchdown, which is the same ACL he tore the year before. So he's gonna be bouncing back. I don't know how well. I mean, given the opportunities he did, due to Green's injury and Smith not exactly carrying the workload as expected. He's a guy that could come in if he's healthy. I mean, he's missing the spring, recovering from that injury. So I don't know if he's going to be the same player, or that little 2 or 3 game run he had last season is kind of a flash in the pan or what. But that's production there that Michigan will be missing. Obviously, Derek Green suffered a broken collarbone midway through the season against Rutgers, and that sidelined him for the rest of the year. So hopefully he's coming back healthy for them because they need the depth. But personally, I'm all in on the Ty Isaac camp. He's a USC transfer, missed last season due to transfer rules, so he had the red shirt. But he's gained a lot of nice weight. He's 240 now, which is kind of really great for his size. He's great running back, solid with his cuts and everything. And Ty Wheatley has been really complimentary of him. I don't have any hunches or any inside information of where this is headed, but if the compliments keep coming towards Ty Isaac, I definitely think that he can take the load. I mean, he showed little flashes in USC. Didn't really his stats. Maybe he had like 250 yards rushing, but he was impressive during his time out there. Derek Green, again, he could start, but didn't exactly take the reins. I mean, he looked like he was coming into his own before he was injured. But again, Ty Wheatley's looking for a lead back heading into this season and during the season. But again, he doesn't mind having that little, 3 or 4 running back little stable thing he's got going on there. So time will tell. Again, it's kind of like the quarterback situation. I don't think you're really going to find much out heading into the spring. Definitely something to look out for at fall camp. But I would not be surprised at all if Ty Isaac came in there and stole the starting job.
And it wouldn't be too surprising for people that follow USC to a certain extent that he wouldn't get too many attempts in that backfield. Silas Redd will be in an NFL camp this fall, and Buck Allen was like a first-team All-Pac-12 performer there. So crowded backfield at USC. As you well know, Josh, around college football, that the head coach is like the governor. Especially at a place like Michigan. He's the guy. He's probably the most recognizable guy in the state. If he does nothing, if he's low-key, if he's Jim Tressel or somebody of that ilk. But, man, when you act like Jim Harbaugh and you have that certain something, that charisma, you could call it, you almost become celebrity-like status.
Yeah, and I don't think he's even trying. I think he's just being Jim Harbaugh, and that's the funny part. Anything, when he helped the woman who rolled her Jeep due to icy weather conditions, he was there on the scene helping her out with Jim Minnick, who has armed forces training and has first aid training. So he was giving him instructions, gave her his coat until the emergency crews arrived. So, it's something that any regular human being probably would do if they saw that happen right before their eyes. I mean, at least stop. But just because it's Jim Harbaugh, it kind of makes the rounds as far as the news go. I mean, I think he was just doing something regular that kind of, took a hold and kind of grew into its own. But again, that's the life of Jim Harbaugh. I mean, like in the same week, he was first base coach for the Oakland Athletics during spring training. So, the life of Jim Harbaugh is certainly an interesting one. I didn't really expect. I kind of figured that he lived an interesting life. Just researching him as his coaching search went on. Front row seats. He was on a YouTube video. Front row seats at Judge Judy. Kind of expected things like that as well. But I didn't expect it to happen this fast. But again, it's Jim Harbaugh. You know, he's a strange guy, a different breed of person. But you know what? I think for now, I think Michigan definitely scored big on their coaching search.
And as you mentioned before we came on, if you don't follow head college football coaches because you get the typical generic spiel of day one of practice, here's a picture that probably somebody else tweeted, Jim Harbaugh could be a different case for you. It might be worth a follow.
Yeah, he's if you've ever, like you said, if you've ever questioned a head coach tweeting, just read Jim Harbaugh's timeline, Twitter timeline. You can be convinced that's him straight out of his mouth. Those words. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable the stuff he tweets sometimes. I mean, you get the regular inspirational quotes, and then you've got him wishing each player happy birthday, have a great month, a great day, a great year in the same tweet. His son too, Jay Harbaugh, is a pretty good follow too if you're into following coaches too. So, I mean, he's a young guy, so obviously he gets it with the Twitter world and social media world. But just to see kind of Jim Harbaugh out there, who didn't seem to have a clue of what Twitter was during his San Francisco days, but I mean, if you've been following Harbaugh for a long time, especially during his Stanford days, I mean, he's been on Twitter for a while and he's had some pretty wild tweets in the past. So this is definitely not anything new by any means.
Good stuff. Joshua Henschke, Maize n Brew on the SB Nation platform, covering Michigan football, Michigan athletics in general, with the spring game coming up on April 4th. So we're just about 2 weeks away. Hopefully, Josh, we can have you back at that point.
Yep, no problem. Anytime.